My name's Richard Herrin. I have been in QA for many moons. Quite a while. Just about 2.5 decades, basically. So it's been a lot of fun, and I spent a lot of time of my career in leadership. So I started in QA leadership in the early 2000s, and then have been at multiple companies as a director, as a QA manager, and just working with different teams, obviously internationally. Anybody who's been in software over the last couple of decades has been working with people in different parts of the world. So I've had time in Ireland, India, a lot of India, Armenia, Poland, Canada, which is technically a foreign country, as it turns out. So learned a lot. Learned a lot about leadership over the years. Had some time to spend learning specifically about leadership at Fidelity Investments. That we had some sessions that we did where we were reading books and then coming together as a leadership team and talking about the things we had learned and the concepts. So really enjoyed that. And so the concept here is that leadership isn't something that we are. Leadership is something that we do. And I think it's a really important thing to understand that being a leader isn't the title, it isn't the office, it's something that we do. So what we'll talk about today is what leadership is. And then we'll talk about the 5 levels of leadership. And I'm inserting QA. I want to talk first about what leadership is. As I said, we could probably stack rank the leaders we've worked with in our careers, right? And you'd say, well, this one's better, this one's worse, this one's really good. We won't go in the really worse. But at the end of the day, the leaders who are the most effective are the leaders that have the greatest influence. And that's how Maxwell defines it. He says that leadership is influence. It's our ability to work with other people and get things done using our influence. So as a QA leader, your influence is obviously your QA team. But if we stop at the QA team, then we're missing something. We're missing a lot of some things. And the way I would propose it is the QA team, if that is your only focus as a leader and creating influence on your team, then you're going to be reactive. So I think that a QA leader's influence has to extend beyond just the QA team. So we'll talk about that. So let's talk about the 5 levels of leadership. This is from Maxwell's book. The first level is position. And we'll dig into these a little further, but then he adds permission, and then he says production, then people development, and finally pinnacle. So this is, we'll start at position. So this is where people follow you because they just have to. Your title says manager, your title says director, your title says lead, your title says vice president. Doesn't matter what your title says, but if it says some sort of a leadership engaged title, then they follow you because they go, well, this is the person with the title and I'm the person without the title, so therefore I have to follow them. And that's what they do. So the upside of that is that usually you get this because of something you've done. Someone's seen some sort of potential in you. Now this started for me early in my career. I said, wow, I want to help. I want to be more than just testing every day. And so I started working with people that were struggling with things. There was one woman that I worked with that really had a hard time with automation. I said, great, what are you struggling with? She said, this and this and this, and she had a list. I said, great, schedule a time for us to talk every Monday. I don't care when, just pick an hour. We'll go through it. You ask whatever question you've got. I started doing that. Well, as I started doing that and stepping outside myself to help other people, and then I started stepping outside and saying, wait a minute, I don't know everything. Let me find some senior level people. That made an impact on my manager, and pretty soon I was given an opportunity to lead. As there's an upside, and we're QA, there's also a downside. One of the things is if you focus on your position, then you can devalue people. People don't become important. It's that, well, I'm the boss. Because I'm the dad. Because I said so. That's why. Has anybody ever heard that? Yeah, so you might devalue people and you focus on your rights. Because I have the title, I get to say what's going to happen, instead of your responsibility to serve as a leader, to help people, to help them succeed. And then the other thing is politics. I'm sure people have been around leaders who their focus is on the next level, and they want to build up political clout. Thank you for the word. I'm getting there. But yeah, they try to build that up so that they can get that next level, and they want to build up a political following so that they're always the one that gets the next promotion. So there is definitely a downside to position. So then we go to the next level, which is permission. I'm going to make sure I'm on time here. This is where people follow you because they want to. They choose to follow you. And again, as we talked about, having that influence beyond just the QA team. This is where if you go to another team, they say, yes, I'm willing to work with you because I know who you are and what you've done. I want to work with you. So your support team, right? So they want to follow you. So the upside here is higher energy. You build more open communication and it nurtures trust. Now I want to full disclosure here, I do not speak Chinese, but this is the Chinese verb to listen. It's pronounced ting. That's as much Chinese as I know. But what's interesting about this is that it is composed of multiple parts. So let me show you the parts of this. So this is composed of the ear over here, and the ear is saying, I hear you. Well, that's what we use to listen with, so I hope you're hearing. But then it's focused on the other person. It's on you. This is not about me, this is about you. So you're listening. You're focused on them with your eyes. You see them. I can see what you're saying. And then you give them your undivided attention. And I feel what you're saying. If they're frustrated about something, whatever, you're giving them. So as we listen, imagine if this is how we listen, doesn't that create energy? Doesn't that open our communication channels with that person? And doesn't that build trust? So we should be listening as leaders to the people that we're working with to try to establish that influence. Now, you think about that and you go, wow, what downside is there to that? Well, there can be. One down piece of it is that sometimes people will try to take advantage of you. I had people that would not come in on time. And because they knew me and because I tend to have a kinder approach to my leadership, they would try to take advantage of that. So you have to guard for that. You have to hold people accountable, but there's a balancing act there. You still are wanting to listen to them and understand. So one person was trying to do that, but then I found out later he was going through a divorce. Okay, so now that's different. That's a little different. He's not doing it just to try to take advantage of me. Maybe he's trying to do it because something is upside down in his personal life. And so you throw a little bit more understanding there. The other part of it is with permission, you're dealing with the whole person. It takes a lot more effort. So you're not just dealing with an assignment. Go do this. You're on that team. You're going to automate some tests. There's a task that you're giving them. You're dealing with them as a person, as an individual. And so that can be more time consuming. So that's maybe a little bit of a downside to permission. The next level is production. And this is where people follow you because of what you've done for the organization. So we've accomplished something. We've become productive in developing or releasing quality software. We've done something for the company that the people have recognized as of value. So the good news here, it gives credibility to the leader. You get credibility because you say, well, it's important that we automate our tests. And you automate your tests, and then your quality goes up, and your scores from your customers go up, and people go, wow, that was good. And then your team says, wow, that worked out well. I want to keep doing more of that. It brings clarity and reality to whatever vision you've established out there, and it creates momentum. I think about momentum in this way. If your support team doesn't have to deal with angry customers after you've released something into production, they can spend more time working with customers on things they really need help with, not solving bugs in the software. So your support team then is more willing to work with you. They want to come and work with you and help give you input into, hey, this is what our customers are trying to do with the application. Oh, that's not what we designed it for. Yeah, but they really want to be able to do this. Now you've got an ear into the customer that you can then work with the rest of your engineering team, your product team, right? From a product team perspective, if you have quality software that you've released, the product team says, great, now I don't have to worry about technical debt. I can focus on roadmap. Now your product team says, QA, what can we do to keep that ball rolling? How do we keep that momentum rolling forward? So there's definitely value in creating a productive environment. Now the downside is this. So you can see those. I'll give you a story about when I was first made a QA manager. I had the title and everything, and I said, okay, one of the things we want to do is automate. We said this is really important to automate. Great. Here's a this is a throwback. Here's a 1-year project. We don't do it that way anymore. But I said, here's a 1-year project that we're going to automate this set of tests. We're going to do a 1-year project so that we can keep doing the work that we need to do to get the releases out, but we're also going to have that done. Now, about 6 months into that, I realized, hey, we're not going to be done on time. And so I jumped in as a leader, and I said, all right, well, I just was a year ago, I was a QA engineer, I can do this. So I jumped in and I started working on it. We worked side by side as a team. And by the end, at 11:30 p.m. on the due date for that project, I checked in the last bit of automated code and we were done. We got done on time. And there's a lot of value that I created with the team, but I was being very productive. I'm not sure at that point I was leading and establishing that vision and helping people understand how they could overcome their own shortcomings. So this is a difficult part of production because we have to be the ones to make those difficult decisions. So there's definitely a downside to production. So then the next level, time check, is people development. So this is where people follow you because of what you've done for them. So as you develop people, you're looking for ways to help other people in their careers. Now, I've done this in a couple of ways. Maxwell's talking about this in terms of building other leaders. I've done it in terms of building other people's careers. So I've had people that wanted to be project managers, and so I've helped them to get the training and to get the opportunities to work in project management. And so then they were able to move on and do that either at the company we were at or at another company, but I was able to help them in their career. That brings a lot of excitement to me. The other thing that I did, though, is there were 2 guys on my team that wanted to be leaders. They wanted to be QA managers. And I said, well, I've said this for years, you don't need a title to be a leader. And I think we've all heard that. But these 2 guys took that to heart and they said, okay. And they jumped in and they started doing a lot of the things that I had seen other people do that were successful as leaders. They were coaching other people. They were learning. They watched for process issues that we were having. They would raise those issues. And so because of some of the work that they were doing and stepping outside what their defined role was, I was able to go to my boss and her boss and say, look, these 2 guys want to be QA managers. If we get a role, I want their name on the list. It took a couple of years, but they were both promoted and they became my peers. They were on my team as peers reporting to my boss. That was exciting. I still look back at that and I think that is one of the most exciting accomplishments of my leadership career, is helping other people to develop in their own careers. Okay, so you get the fulfillment. It also sets you apart. If all you're doing is just getting the job done, you don't stand out from most other leaders. But the downside of people development is that sometimes it can be threatening to you if you're developing other leaders, because basically what you're doing is you're working yourself out of a job. If you do it the way it is most effective. You're giving them responsibility. You explain to them, this is what I have to do. Now I'm going to take this little chunk of my responsibilities. I want you to do that. And they learn how to do it. Well, guess what? That's part of my responsibility, part of my job. If they become good at that, and I give them a little more, and I give them a little more, pretty soon they're doing a lot of what I do or all of what I do. And maybe they say, well, let's promote this person and we'll fire Richard. So it can be a really challenging situation from a security perspective. The other thing is that it does take a lot of work. If you don't do this part of the people development work, there's a lot to it. There's a lot of back and forth, holding them accountable, helping them learn, helping them grow, making sure that what they're doing is really what needs to be done for the organization, and it's helping them become more adept at being leaders. So it does take a lot more work. So as a leader, that's a lot of investment of time. And so some people will just kind of back away and say, I'm just going to get the job done. I'm going to do production, I'm going to do permission, I'm going to do position, and I'm not going to worry about developing other people. Last level is Pinnacle. So this is where people follow you because of who you are and what you represent. Now at this point, I do want to point out, okay, the story I'm going to tell is about a CEO, but I want to make sure we're clear. You don't need to be a CEO to be a Pinnacle leader. You just don't. So the upside is that you create a legacy. So imagine a QA leader, VP of QA or a director of QA who has a really good reputation. So this CEO that I worked with, people loved him. He had a really good reputation as far as being a kind person. He had a great vision for the company. And he was the CEO, but when he would walk past me, he would say, hey, Rich, he knew my name, right? I mean, that's remarkable in and of itself. He knew my name. That's cool. But he encouraged me. How's it going? How are things going in QA? Tell me what's going on. You know, he would take 30, 60, 90 seconds, check in with me. I looked up to him and I wanted to be successful because I wanted him to be successful because of who he was and what he represented for the company. I was excited to be a part of that. So this also provides him or her an extended platform for leading, because as you reach this level, you've been developing people. Hopefully it's a self-sustaining process now. If you train leaders who become level 4 leaders, who are developing leaders that become level 4 leaders, level 5 leaders, you're creating this self-sustaining cycle of leadership. And so it's important to reach this level, but the problem is you might think you've arrived. So Pinnacle isn't necessarily a destination, right? We think about it as a destination. We go, oh, well, it's top of the pyramid, right? That means we've arrived. Doesn't mean we've arrived. It means there's just more work to be done. So sometimes we might lose focus at that point. Boy, I've worked so hard. I feel like I'm a level 5 leader. I need a break. Sometimes we can feel like that. And then the other thing is you might believe your own press. People are going to say positive things. I know every person in this room has had something positive written, said, published about them. And sometimes you believe that. I'm not saying don't believe it at all, but maybe take it with a bit of a grain of salt. Maybe have some humility in that sense. So Pinnacle is kind of that top level. Now, I want to do a couple of other things about the levels. First, about this, your leadership level changes over time, obviously as you develop. But the other really important thing about it is that it can drop. So if you're a level 4 people development leader, and then you stop working on developing people, well, that can drop. And the other thing is really interesting. The drop is easier to accomplish than the climb. So the other thing, and this one I think is really interesting, and I would say not just for each person, but for each group that you interact with. So you might be a level 4 leader for the support team, but with the product team, you might be level 1. But this is what provides us, having these career opportunities, having the leadership level, and understanding where we are. That's what allows us to map our leadership career path. So there's a book called Good to Great by Jim Collins. Jim Collins wrote this book, and it was about financial performance. So the performance was, there are companies that do good. They're not losing money, but they're not getting these huge returns. And his focus was on saying, well, is this company a good company, or they are a great company? And people came to him and they said, Jim, we got a problem with this. We're a good company. We want to be a great company. How do we become a great company? So he started doing more research, and he found that there was an inflection point for companies that decided, they made a decision that they were going to be great. And as he mapped that out for the companies, and it was about financial performance, I look at this and I think, okay, maybe you're a good leader right now. Don't we all want to be great? I want to be a great leader. And so what's the inflection point? In my mind, this is a decision that we make here, and we say, I'm not just going to be a good leader. I'm going to be a great leader. The way we do that is, first you have to do an assessment of some sort, a self-assessment to say, this is what kind of a leader I am. Now, there's an assessment in the book, in the 5 levels of leadership that he has in there. There's also, and this is just something that I had put together, but you could do some sort of an assessment where you say for the team and then the person. And you say, well, for Scott, I'm a level 1 leader. Scott just sees me as the boss. I haven't invested anything in Scott. But for Sally, I'm a level 3 leader. But for the QA team as a whole, maybe I'm level 2. And if you want to get really courageous and dangerous, ask these people where they would put you on the 5 levels of leadership. That takes some humility, because getting that type of 360-degree feedback from the people you lead, from people in other departments, from senior level leaders, if you can get their time to do that, will give you a better assessment than just looking in the mirror and saying, I'm a peacock, right? So to end on this, my family, we love to hike. Okay. My family loves to hike. I go with them. But we do love to hike. I love seeing the world. And this is in Colorado. This is Black Canyon of the Gunnison, I think is what it's called. When you go on a hike, you find a map. There's a destination. You want to see some view or a waterfall or something like that. And so you say, okay, how do I get there? You say, well, here's the trail. Here's a trailhead right here on the map. Boom. And then the trail goes like this. And then you see the waterfall you wanted to see. That's great. But in my experience, what I've noticed is that that's not how it rolls out. You get on the trail, you start walking, and you realize somewhere I stepped left when I should have stepped right, and now the trail is bushes. And so you got to figure out how to get out of that situation. Sometimes there's a tree or boulders that have fallen across the pathway, and you got to figure out how to get around those. Well, our career course that we're taking, our leadership course, is nothing different than that conceptually. We have the opportunity to say, well, I'm going to become a level 4 leader. I'm going to become a level 5 leader. Whatever our goal is, but along the way, we're going to run into issues. We're going to run into problems. And so my challenge today is to start this process. Find out where you are. Find out where you are in the leadership levels, and then start saying, this is my next step. If I take this step with this person or this step with this group, I feel like I can improve my influence with them, which will in the end increase my leadership level. I can become more valuable to the company, and we can release better software. So that's the challenge that we all have. I want to make sure that we're clear on that. I believe that every person in here has that potential within them to be a level 5 leader. every one of you. So take this, become who you want to be. Be the leader you want to be. Thanks for your time.